Hello and welcome back to the channel. On today's tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut a simple inbuilt corset dress. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button. Let's dive right into today's video. So here on my pattern paper, I've marked all my basic measurements, which includes my shoulder to bust, my shoulder to under bust, my shoulder to waist, and my hip point. To get my hip point is 7 inches away from my hip. So my shoulder to bust is 9 inches, my shoulder to under bust is 12 inches, my shoulder to waistline is 17, and my hip point is 24. So I marked my shoulder divided by 2 plus half inch, making it 7.5. So I will come down by 1 inch. I will connect it to my shoulder. My shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2. I have 7 plus half, making it 7.5. So I'll go ahead and mark the basic neckline of 3 inches. So I was supposed to mark 3.5, but I don't want the neckline to be a bit choky, and I'll go ahead to use 3.5. Now I'll place my French curve, and I'm going to go ahead to connect all the way down. So after I'm done connecting, next you want to find your chest line. So your chest line is also your armhole. So to do that is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. My bust circumference is 33. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that 7.5 I have on the shoulder, just to make sure that I have a straight line on this point. I'll place and connect. After I'm done connecting, I'm going to go ahead to measure what I have from my bust down to that line, and whatever I have, I'm just going to mark it down, and I'll also mark it here. This is just to make sure that I have a straight line at my chest line. After that, I'll go ahead and I will rule a straight line at that point, and that will serve as my chest line for this pattern. So after I'm done drawing out, the next step is to go ahead and divide my armhole into 2, and I'll mark. Whatever you have, divide into 2, and from that part you divided, go in by half. Now I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. My bust is 33 divided by 4. I have 8.3. And from that 8.3, I'm just going to connect it down to that half inch I have at the armhole, and I'll connect it down to the shoulder point. I'll go ahead to outline all my pattern to make it more visible for you to see. So the next step is to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. I'll go ahead to mark this. This will serve as a guide to draw out my dart. Now I'm going to go ahead to place my curved rule, and I'm going to draw out, connecting all those 3.5 inches mark that I have made on this pattern. So after I'm done doing that, I'll be taking my dart intake on this pattern, but before that I'll divide my shoulder into 2, connect from my shoulder down to the initial point that I made. This is to help draw out my dart at the upper part. Now I'm going to be marking a dart intake of 1 inch at both sides. If you're a plus size, please make use of 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead to place my ruler, and I'm going to connect at both sides of those marks that I made. From that point, I'm going to place my ruler, and I'm going to connect down to the lower part of my pattern. And on this point also, I'm going to go ahead to repeat the same process. So after I'm done marking it out, the next step is to go ahead to use my marker to mark it all out. Now I'll place my French curve at this point, and I'm going to go ahead to connect this way. So after I'm done doing that, I'll go up by 1.5 inches. You can also use 2 inches, and I'll rule a line at that point. I'll rule a fence line. So I'll go ahead to mark my dart intake of 1 inch at both sides. So if you're a plus size, go ahead and mark 1.5 inches also. So at this point, I'll place, and I'm going to go ahead to draw it out. So while blending out, I ended up using a freehand sketch to blend it to the end. So after blending this out, the next step is to come in by half inch at this point. So you want to draw out the cup styling on top. So you have to look at what you have, and I'll just use a freehand sketch to draw it out at this point. So I'll connect it there, and after my underbust, I'll just go down by half inch a little, and I'll place my French curve at this point and connect. So this is what I have on this point. To draw out the cup for the other side, I'll blend my dart and I'll use a freehand sketch also to connect at the other side. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my marker to outline my pattern. So after I'm done outlining, the next step is to go ahead to impute my body measurement. So I'm going to mark my bust circumference. My bust is 33 divided by 4. I have 8.3. So I'll measure the dart intake replace and add my sewing allowance. So you can also, instead of measuring on top, you can just measure at that point you have your chest line and you're just going to replace the dart intake and add your sewing allowance. So at the under bust, I'll mark the under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake and add the sewing allowance of ½ inch. At my waistline, my waist is 28 divided by 4, 7, and I'll replace the dart intake and I'll add my sewing allowance. So I forgot to add that, but I'll add it when I'm actually marking out my pattern. So for the hip, you're going to mark your hip circumference divided by 4 and add your sewing allowance. So after you're done doing that, all you have to do is to go ahead to connect your pattern. So just like I said, I did not add the ½ inch at this point, so I'll go ahead and replace that and I'll connect from my waist down to my hip this way. So this is what my pattern is looking like. So yours might not look exactly, but it's still accurate. Now I'm going to use my marker to mark it all out. Now I'm going to use a bust dart. For my bust dart is 1.5. So yours might be different from mine. To get your bust dart is the difference between your front and your back length, because your front you have bust and at the back there's no bust. So I'm going to go ahead to mark my bust dart of 1.5 at this point, and I'm going to mark it out just for you to know that that is my bust dart. So my shoulder to waist is 17.5. By the time you take out this bust dart, for the back pattern, your waist is going to be, your shoulder to waist will be 15.5. So now I want to divide this into two to snatch our waistline. To snatch your waistline is your initial measurement. My waist is 28 and I want to take out 4 inches from it, which is 24 inches. So 28 divided by 4, I have 7, and 24 divided by 4, I have 6 inches. So 7 inches minus 6 inches. So what you will have is 1 inch. So for our darts, I'm going to be taking out 1 inch from our waistline. So by the time I take it out on the front waistline by the left and also take it on the right and repeat the same process for the back, with that way you will snatch your waistline. So this line is just a style line for me to insert my dart. So marking ½ inch at both sides, and I'll go ahead and mark ½ inch at the other side. So at that point, I will go ahead and I will extend my dart upwards this way, and at the other side, I will repeat the same process. And also place my ruler and draw out for the lower part. So this is what I have at this point. I'll go ahead and I will cut out this pattern. So after that, I'll go ahead also to cut out the dart part, and what I'm going to do is to go ahead to blend it up this way before drawing out my cup at the other side, and I'll go ahead to pin it down. You can also use a sellotape to hold it down if you have one, but I use the pin to hold it down on this pattern. So now you're going to blend up the sides to meet just like I'm doing. After you're done blending it in, the next step is to go ahead to draw your cup for this pattern. So from your armhole to your bust circumference on top, divide it into two this way, and you're just going to go ahead to place your French curve and you're going to connect it down to your under bust like this. So after connecting it, your cup is ready, and I'm going to use my marker to blend it out very well. So this is what I have on this part. This is my cup A and this is my cup B. Go ahead to extend your dart lines and label your pattern so that you don't misplace it. So after I'm done doing this, the next part is to work on the lower part. So from here, I'm going to measure about 5 inches, which is also 22 inches, or you can come up by 2 inches from your hip point. So I went down by 5 inches from my waistline, which is 22 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead to extend it. So just to show you what I have, I placed my tape and you can see that I have 22 inches. So for an inbuilt corset, you can use 22 inches, but if you're on a bigger size, you can use 24, 26. It just depends on what you want to achieve. Now I'll go ahead and rule out the lower part this way. Now at the side, I'll be coming up by 2 inches, and after that I'm going to go ahead to place my French curve this way, and I'm going to connect from that part down to the front pattern. So when you're connecting, make sure that you blend in your darts so that by the time you're joining, your pattern is going to actually meet. And I'll go ahead to connect at the lower part of my pattern this way. So after I'm done connecting, I'm going to go ahead to cut it out. So before cutting it out, I'm just going to open up and show you. So if you're sewing your corset without a bust dart, this is what you're going to have. Now if you're sewing it with a bust dart, you're just going to close it up, and you're going to hold it either with your sellotape or whatever you have and pin up your corset. So after this, I'm just going to go ahead to cut out my pattern. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative and you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and also join us in our next video. So after I'm done cutting out, this is what my pattern looks like. So in the next video, we'll be doing the back and the skirt pattern.